It sounds cool, but this sure does look like a grandpa truck.
Well,
we can fix that.
we can.
We're gonna. Hey guys, Sean again, Custom Offsets TV on the YouTube. Got another episode of Shit I Never Knew. This is gonna be episode number 16, and this is underrated tires are overrated. We've had a billion questions and manufacturer feedback, and we've reached out to a couple of folks to get some insight on it, to really try to figure out what tire rating should you be running, especially on these 3/4 tons and 1 ton trucks. So these are two different examples that we'll run through, and we'll kind of show you how we would do it if we were in both situations. So in this situation, it's a newer Super Duty. So it still has the factory tires on it, or it was replaced with exactly what the factory came with. So on this scenario, all I have to do is keep looking around here, and typically it's right by the size. So I found the size is 275/70 R18. Right after that are two numbers. This one says 125/122R. What that is that's the load index. Remember that? You're gonna wanna know that for later. So 125 is the load index if it's run all by itself. 122 is the load index if it's run as a dually and it were side by side with another tire in the rear. So this is the type of tire when they have two numbers that can be used for a dually application. So this is load index 125. If I were to go over here just to verify, there's also a placard on the truck, a sticker in the door pillar, and that's got the original tire size. And because it's a newer truck, it's also got that load index right there on the sticker. Now the other scenario would be if you're driving a mean machine like this guy here, and it's an 05 older vehicle. This one obviously no longer has the stock tires. So I don't want to go off of what somebody else put on here to try to figure out what I'm able to run on it. So what I would have to do is go again to the sticker, and this one's got a pillar sticker and then also one on the door. The one on the door has more information, but this one, when I look through, it'll tell me the PSI that it wants to run at, and it'll tell me the tire size, but it's not telling me the load index anywhere. The only things that I can grab off of this one, there's a gross vehicle weight rating, and then there's a gross axle weight rating for the front and for the rear. I'll show you now. We'll go back, look at the board, and kind of lay out what that means that you would do with those numbers. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a picture. Nope, I didn't bring my camera, so I'm gonna have to remember it. So I've got a gross axle, you have to remember this with me, Mario, are you with me? Gross axle weight rating for the rear, which is the higher one. Obviously the front doesn't matter if the rear is gonna be higher because I have to at least meet the rear, is 5,000 pounds. So we'll remember that. And then the load index for that guy was 125. So let's go start doing some math and see what we come out with. So basically, we'll break out our two scenarios. So we have one scenario, which is the newer Super Duty. And we were able to find load index, which is the best in the be all. And that was 125, 122. And on the Hummer, we couldn't find load index. So ideally we would have found load index. Can't find it. So we had gross vehicle weight rating. That's not safe because you really need the gross axle weight rating for the rear, because the rear was 5,000. What was interesting is the front was only 4,000. So if you divide by 2, you can find out what each tire needs to be rated for. And this is why the rear is important, because if you bought tires rated for 2,000 pounds, you're gonna be in trouble when you flip them to the rear. So that's not valuable. The number that's valuable now is 2,500 pounds on the Hummer. So we'll start with the Super Duty and we'll show you what you'd wanna do there. These are super easy because you basically are working with load index. Load index is nothing more, there's my phone I was looking for. Load index is nothing more, and you can Google this pretty much anywhere. Maybe we'll throw one on the website for you. But I can Google just about anywhere what that load index table looks like, and I can find out what that means the weight rating is going to be for those tires. So it's a 125 it's requiring. That means that that truck's looking for 36, 38 per tire. And that's pounds. And then the other thing that's really important is you have to look at the air temperature, and that one was at 80 PSI. And that Hummer, what did we say, was 32, I think, 37? We'll go with 37. I'd have to go look at it to make sure, but it was around 30 to 37. And that one, we're at 25 pounds. So what we've done is we've basically converted the load index to pounds, but the great news is you don't have to do that. So when you start looking at tires on the website, or if you start looking at them in person, every tire is marked with that weight rating. So if I look at this Atturo AZ800, which is more of an all-terrain tire, you see that okay, Mario? Yeah. That's a 112. So that 112, there's no way it's going on a 125. You have to be at that number or higher. So that 112, if you go throw that on that Super Duty, is severely underrated, and you're gonna have a major problem. Probably have a blowout. It'll basically take the sidewalls out of the tire most likely and wipe out whole minivans full of kids. So it's not advised. So that's a 112. That one's rated at 2,469 pounds. We're looking for 3,638 pounds. So that's not even in the ballpark. So as I go through this huge pile of tires, I'll start at this end. I've got the Toyo Open Country AT2 Extreme. This tire's been around for quite a while. It's a badass tire. The Extreme is the AT2 is the newest rendition of it. And you can see that this one is a 123. So 123, I can either go on the website and we actually have the load rating. You already know that it's not 125, so it's not gonna work for that Super Duty. And the reason is that can only handle 3417. So we're still short of that 3638. So that one's a no-go. Even though, and here's what's interesting, this is a Lodi, it's a 10 ply, you can run it up to 80 PSI. So there are lots of people running these on Super Duties. This tire is not rated for that Super Duty. So even though this tire's run all over the place on Super Duties, at 123, it does not meet the manufacturer's requirement for that vehicle. So if that vehicle were maxed out to be pulling what it's set up to pull, you would be in trouble on the, likely on the rear axle, on the rear tires. So that one's not gonna cut it. This one's not gonna cut it. We already went through the Atturo AZ. Next is the Nitto 420. How many Super Duties have you seen running around with Nitto 420s? Well, this one's rated at 120. We're looking for 125, so that one ain't gonna cut it. If you run that one, you're 3,086, you're 1,000 pounds or 25% underrated on your tires. So if you try to use that vehicle to its potential, you are definitely gonna have problems. This one, this Federal Courage, I grabbed this one because it's an 18. So I see the load index of 119. So that one's not even close. Here's our Atturo Trailblade MT. I see lots of guys running these on Super Duties. And to be honest with you, this one is a load index. They can be tricky to find, but you're literally looking for three numbers. 123, 123. So 125, that one's not going on there. And remember, this is if you're following the manufacturer specifications. I've said it once, I've said it twice, I've said it 1,000 times. Do what you want, you're gonna anyways. But this is what you're supposed to be doing. So are there guys out there that are gonna say, I need a 125, but this is a 123. Let's see what the 123 goes up to for weight. If I look at a table, you're at 3417. So you're at 3417. The truck is telling you to have 3638. It requires a 10% barrier. So you're looking for 4,000. And basically, if you go with that tire, you're settling for 3417. So you're about 600 pounds. What is that about? Probably 15% under the rating. So this one is a Toyo Open Country RT. This is a fairly new tire. That's a 121, so that one doesn't work. And you know what's amazing is every one of these are being run on Super Duties all over the place. So I'm not saying people don't do it. I'm saying that ideally you wouldn't. So here's the Nitto Ridge Grappler. This is F-loaded, or F-load, load F, 12 ply. So this is a new tire. They just came out with it not too long ago. Most of the Ridge Grapplers are F-loaded. If you look on the website, you'll see which ones are. This guy's a 126Q. This can absolutely be run on that truck because we need a 125 and that's a 126. This one, which we're jacked about coming out, this is also F-loaded. This is the Toyo Open Country MT, but the MT that we pushed over there that wasn't loaded enough, maybe we didn't push one over there. Oh, it's in the corner. This is F-loaded, so it's the same tire, but this is a 12 ply. And this one runs at a 125Q, or 125, so that one's gonna work. So out of all these tires, these are the two. If you're following the rules to a T, and you're gonna follow that load index and that load rating for that rear axle. Cool, you believe me, Mario? All right, so that would be your options. Basically F-load, 12 ply, if you're gonna follow the rules on the Super Duty. Let's look at the Hummer. So remember the Hummer, we didn't have the load index. Gross vehicle weight isn't worth going at. The front axle doesn't matter because the rear axle needs more. So on the rears, it was 5,000 pounds or 2,500. You remember we need to go 10% over that. So that'd be another 250. So we need 2,750. So this is when I don't have a load index and I've got to come up with it. And it was at 37 PSI. So now what I would want to do is basically go find one of those charts and convert to a load index so that I can use that load index, that 3-digit, would be the fastest, to be honest with you. 2756 would be a 116. So you're looking for a 116 load index. So now you start the game all over again. 116 would be 2670. Oh, no, it's 2756. So that's 2756. That overshoots my 10% on my rear axle divided by 2 because there's 2 tires on the rear axle. Because this is, remember, this is a per tire rating. So obviously I can run those on the Hummer because they're the F-load. And those guys were well over 116. And then I start the game over again. So this one is a 121. I can run this on the Hummer. And that's a Toyo Open Country RT. This is our Turo 37-inch MT. What was this guy? A 123. I can run that one on the Hummer all day. This was our 8-ply Federal Coraggio. 119. So this one says I can run that. Now the question is, because it's 8-ply, I'm surprised to see that. So let's look up at what air pressure is it getting to that. Because that's the other thing, is that you have to consider the, at what PSI is it making that weight. So I would go and find that Federal Coraggio on our website. So I just go to customoffsets.com, products, wheels and tires, search by tire, diameter. This is an 18-inch. I think it's like a 285, 275. So height is 275. Brand is Federal. And then I find that Coraggio MT for the model. And this is an LT, this is a light truck tire, so it's not a P passenger tire. So that's why it's got that higher rating. D rating, 8-ply, 2998 at 65 pounds. So what it's telling me is to get to that 2750, I would need to be running this at probably like 50, 55 pounds. So you'd want to do more math, because if you run this at 37 PSI, which is what it wants you to be at 2750, you're not going to be at 2750 at 37 PSI when this thing is only rated at, what did I say it was rated at? 2998 at 65 pounds. So this one's starting to dance on the edge. So when you're starting to play close to that number, then you have to play the PSI game. Is it rated at 37 PSI, which is what that truck's calling for? Is it still rated to match? So this one I wouldn't run because it's an 8-ply on an H2 heavy ass Hummer, and it's right on the edge. Nitto 420, that's a 120H. That one again is close. 120 sounds pretty good. So again, I'm gonna go off to the website. I'm gonna do a new tire search, and I'm gonna look that up. 305. 50. And that is a Nitto. $420S, 325.50. I mean 305.50. So that one's at max load would be 3,086 at 50 pounds. 3,086. We're looking for 2,750 at 50 pounds. That one's going to be close. I would be comfortable running that on that Hummer because it's that close. And I don't know if that's exact math. You guys can dig deeper if you care to that extent. My goal is to help you not have grossly underrated tires so that you wipe out families full of, minivans full of families. So this is just to get you in ballpark. This Aturo is 112. We're looking for 116, not gonna cut it. This is our Toyo Open Country AT2. That's a 123, that blows the 116 right out of the water. And I know that that one will run it. Might as well pull this guy out of hibernation. This is Toyo Open Country MT. Load range E, and E is a 114. 114, so this one's underrated. I didn't see that coming. So this Toyo Open Country MT that I've had forever, and the new MTs might be higher than that even in the 10-ply, but this old one's only a 114. I'm gonna look on the website and see if they're still that low. So that's a 33, 12 and a half. $20, Toyo Open Country. They now are a 114, so they would still be underrated. So the Toyo Open Country MT would definitely be underrated. It's only at 2,600 pounds at 65 PSI, and we need 2,750 at half that PSI. So those are absolutely underrated. So these guys would not make the cut either. So on that Hummer, I could run any of these and I would feel safe doing it. The closest one being the Nitto 420. You know, that's as much shit as I know about load index, load ratings, gross vehicle, gross axle weight ratings. I would run any one of these on that H2. I'm actually gonna leave here now and go look at the tires I have on the H2 and see if I've broken the rules. It is what it is. You're gonna do what you're gonna do. I'm moving all these tires back out over by my bunk bed, and that's the shit that I know about underrated tires or overrated. So, peace.